This is a perfect topic of conversation, this theme of disruption. This is obviously front and center of a lot of what's happening behind the scenes at NATO headquarters. But what I wanted to say a few words about today is what NATO did this summer, which was a major turning point for the alliance, and that is the strategic concept. It was a key part of the Madrid summit's deliverables. It was a rich summit with a lot to talk about. So it didn't always capture all of the headlines, but the strategic concept was in essence the crown jewel. And it was the crown jewel of that summit because of the ways in which the alliance was signaling a shift in its broad strategy. So if you pick up the strategic concept, you see right at the top, when you open it up, this heavy emphasis on authoritarian actors. And what does it tell us? What does the strategy tell us about what NATO's focused on? First, NATO talks a little bit about the nature of the challenge and how these actors, whether you're talking about Russia or China or another country, work to exploit the openness of our societies, the connectivity that exists in our societies, the digitalization in our societies, again, to sow divisions and find ways to interfere in our democratic processes. They use a variety of tools to target the security of our citizens, of NATO allies, citizens, through a whole range of hybrid tactics. And you know this list. You've heard us talk about it. So again, what NATO has to do in the weeks and months ahead is to take that overarching strategic document, our mission statement of sorts, the strategic concept, and implement it.
Putin has shown that the playbook is you question territorial integrity, you insert different kinds of forces within the borders of another country, including military forces, and you use that to disrupt internally those countries. Who is to say that the next step wouldn't be Moldova, which is 100% reliant on Russian energy? 100%. What's the contingency there? That could happen tomorrow. There were plans probably to decapitate the Moldovan government just a couple months ago. Think about what might happen and transpire in Belarus. That's not a settled situation by any means. There are talks of annexation in South Ossetia within Georgia, which could also take place. We have to be prepared for an extended time of turbulence, unsettledness, and ongoing violence in the eastern part of Europe. And that's why what NATO now does is really quite critical to position itself to be able to deal with that. But we have to understand that we have left that post-Cold War era, and we're now in this age of disruption in which actors, not only state actors, but non-state actors, can weaponize and instrumentalize the flows that bind our societies and keep all the things going that keep our societies worthwhile.
I'd like to also talk about disruption in a more positive sense, because there's been a lot of disruption in the Euro-Atlantic space over the last couple of months. We've had Finland and Sweden walk through the front door of the NATO alliance and ask to become full-fledged members. We've had the European Union making a very surprising shift through its peace facility to provide over 2 billion euros of lethal assistance to Ukraine. We've had some countries change national policies on whether or not they can provide lethal assistance to the troops on the ground in Ukraine. And we've even seen Switzerland now announcing their efforts in recent months to freeze assets. So all to say, disruption is often couched in very negative terms, but disruption also, I think, can be a positive force as well.
Geopolitically, in our part of the world, the biggest disruption is turning the Baltic Sea into a NATO lake. For years, we have been hearing about strategic depth. What are we going to do about the Baltic countries' strategic depth? What about the Suwalki corridor? Well, as soon as Finland and Sweden become members, those problems disappear. So there are positive disruptions. I would hope that among the positive disruption is also a change in attitude in actually taking the countries that have experience with Russia seriously, which has not been the case up to now. Rather, they were often patronized, and this kind of the pre-Ukrainian invasion kumbaya really does have to end, I would say. The world has changed. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization because in this quadrant of the Earth, there is a loosely democratic set of countries whose alliance is based upon bomber range, fighter fueling, troop logistics. But our threats today have nothing to do with distance. Space and time have disappeared. Force equals mass times acceleration is fine for kinetic warfare. When force has no mass, when force has no acceleration, because there's no time or no distance, at least on Earth, you have a cyber attack can blow up infrastructure, as we know from Stuxnet. It can do all kinds of things, and distance doesn't matter anymore. And so when we really think about if we're going to talk about disruption, we need to think about an alliance that can be really strictly bounded by adherence to liberal democratic values, not based only on the geography of 1949.
I think through all of the pain that we've suffered this year, the numbers tell us that actually the transatlantic economy is quite structurally sound. We are more bound to each other than any time before. The U.S. is also emerging now as a major energy partner for Europe in ways that we hadn't even thought about it in earlier years. This is all changing. So we need to harness those positive aspects, and we need to confront the disruptive elements that are coming at us.
The most important message that I really want to bring today is the importance of unity in dealing with all of these challenges. The secret sauce to all of the work that goes on at NATO headquarters is our united front and approach. And that's what we're focused on really above all else, that we need to move forward at 30, soon 32, and maintain our consensus and our resolve and our unity in tackling a lot of these disruptive challenges.